Hey there. So I made it a little bit further in the rule book. My honest convention with this rule book is that I'm not saying that it's bad. It's a little dry. And I fall asleep a lot. um, I tend to like I watched the Pro Bowl today, and I got distracted by that. I'm like that dog in the movie Up, squirrel. So while I'm reading this rule book, I just like the slightest little thing distracts me. I start realizing, oh, you know what? I need to go make a grocery list, or oh, I need to go, ask my son about this. I mean, I just keep coming up with excuse after excuse to stop reading this, and I'm not saying that it's not helpful. It's just that it's so much. So I wanted to create a video and ask a question. And largely the question is going to be based on what is it that you're willing to endure? Because here's the thing, in some respects, I do enjoy learning as I play, and I'm realizing I got to just start playing. And so really I'm at a crossroads. I either need to play a campaign offline so I can come back and know what I'm talking about, or I can have you join me while I'm doing this. And by no stretch of the imagination am I going to claim that this is a teaching video series. And so if you're here because you want to learn how to play this game, I'm going to immediately tell you to look for the second playthrough. Because this first playthrough, if I do this, is going to be a learning game. And it's going to be very interactive. There's a few folks who I know watch these videos with me, and they help out so much with rules because they've played these games, and they like to get involved and help me with anything that I may have done or right or wrong. I actually think that at least at a high level, I can give you a walkthrough of how this game goes. It's the devil's in the details with this game. There's so many details, and just moving your unit has rule after rule after rule. Combat has rule after rule after rule. I can tell you at a high level how combat works, but then there's always these exceptions. There's always these gotchas. And then like when the allies have to place reserve units, there's just this a situation there with placing reserve units that it's insane. There's a deployment method A and a deployment method B. See, look right here, deployment method A, and then there's a deployment method B. So you have to go through two different algorithms just to figure out where the hell a unit's going to go. And oh, by the way, I learned what the S is. Remember I was telling you that some of the units had an S next to the date that they appear? And these ones are considered to be strategic reserve. And the S units are going to come into play sooner, or they're going to have the higher priority for coming into the game. So that's basically where I'm at. And so I'm leaving an open question for you folks. I've gotten more comments on just this first setup video than I have, I think, most of my games. So I know a lot of you have asked me for this, and you've all showed up, and I thank you for it. And then some of you I didn't even know was watching chimed in, and so I just appreciate it so much. And so that's the thing. I want you guys to be with me at the table. I know you guys, some of you have expressed you like how I teach the game. I'm still going to teach what I know. I'm just confessing to you that I don't know this game, and I have to start playing. It's the only way I'm going to rumble and stumble my way through. So the question on the table is really simple. Do you want to see me rumble and stumble, or do you want me to wait? And so then I'm going to play a whole campaign of this on my own with the camera off, and then come back looking like I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night? That's really the question on the table. It's literally on the table. Is I'm willing to share my learning experience of this. But yes, I want to be very clear and careful to let people know that if I do that, I don't want them looking at this series as a way for them to learn how to play. Like, by all means, watch video 1 for setup, which, by the way, I missed a few things. We have to set up, there's some bridges that have been blown up by the Allies, or maybe by the Germans. I presumed it was the Allies, but there's some bridges that were blown up. There's some specific locations in the rulebook that tells you that. And then there's other positions, when you place them, they have an underline. So you can see that Hex 1708 has a line underneath it. And so what that means is that they're dug in. And so then there's a fortified, or I think it's a fortified. It's just basically it's a position token that goes underneath it. And then of course there's also, now these blown bridges, they have a little arrow pointing to the actual, you can see there's an actual bridge here on this road. And so this blown bridge is showing that that particular bridge is blown. I can also tell you that whatever bridges have not been blown, like this is one right here, that the Allies have, like I said, there's rule after rule after rule. There's rules about, there's a possibility that they'll get blown by the Allies. There's rules about, like on the first day, only one unit can go across the bridge normally. Everybody else can go, like you can cross the river anywhere. You don't even need a bridge, but it's just that's your entire move. I mean, I'm getting comfortable enough that I can say those things to you and whatnot, but it's like I said, the devil is in the details, and you know, deployment A versus deployment B, you know, and those kind of things. I can tell you they exist, but just sitting there and reading them and then getting into rule after rule, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to remember this. And so that's where I'm getting hung up, and I have to start playing. It's my way of learning. And that's it in a nutshell. So, yeah, from a setup perspective, that was the primary thing that I forgot to explain. And then one last thing on setup is that these fuel markers, they get, there's something on the other side, but you randomize them and don't look at them. And then you put them on these little spots that have fuel depots or fuel icons, and those are placed in various spots on the map. And you can see 4 of them are on the north, and then I think the 5th one is underneath the rule book, right there in Bastogne. So here's what I know. It's got a pretty nifty card management thing going on. And let me see if I can get my camera to sit up a little taller. My kids messed with this, and I'm not happy with its angle lately. Okay, so anyways, as I mentioned, these are the cards that have primary on the bottom, and these other cards do not, but they all have 16 on the top. And so I'm going to move the cards away from the squares. Basically, when it's your turn, you're going to draw from a draw pile. And these primary cards are always in the draw pile. Always, always, always. So let's say I use 3 of them, you know, from the last turn. It would be in the primary. There's a primary discard pile here that they go in like that. Well, as soon as it's my next turn, those from the primary discard pile go back into the draw pile, and they're available again. Normally, on a turn, you only get 6 cards. But on as a special rule on the first day, because of the surprise attack, we get 9. And so what happens is that these cards get mixed in with some of those. So as you can see, it says available supplemental cards. And so, so here. Place the reinforcement cards entering play face down in the draw pile box if primary, or in the available supplemental box if supplemental. So think of it this way. These cards were on day 16, December 16th, and these cards are all coming into play. Okay? So what they're saying is if it says primary, then they all go in the draw pile, which is there. And if they don't say primary, they go here. Okay? So that's what this is trying to say. And so then you can see here, December 19th, we're going to get another primary and 3 more supplementals. So we'd follow the same procedure. On December 19th, we go to our deck, which I have just off camera here. See, there's a deck here. And so what it's saying is on the 19th, you can see there's 1 supplemental. So it says there's 3 supplemental and 1 primary. So there's 1, there's 2, there's the primary, and there's the 3rd. So all 4 of those cards would get added to this little matrix here. The primary ones would go right into the draw pile. The supplemental ones would go into this pile. Now let's say I take my turn and these supplemental cards get discarded, and then we put them in the supplemental discard pile. The only thing that that you just need to understand is that when it's the next turn, so let's say those get used and they're in the discard pile, and these get used and they're in the primary discard pile, right? All they're trying to say is next turn, these cards, no matter what, go back. And this, plus any new cards that arrive for this turn, get shuffled. And then some of these are drawn and put in with all of this. And then you mix those together. And then, and only then, do you draw your hand from this draw pile. And after you've drawn your hand and you're ready to start your turn, the discards from the last turn go back and are available. So, that was the most long-winded way of saying that whatever supplemental cards you use on turn 1, they go into the discard pile and they can't be used during turn 2. And the earliest you could see them again is turn 3. So you're always going to have like a 1-turn rest period for it. And it's explained here. So you shuffle the available supplemental cards, draw the number of cards indicated for the calendar date. So the number of cards you draw is actually on the calendar listed here. And you can see their German supplemental cards 9. Let me see if I can reach it from here. German right there. See where the pen is pointing? See that number 9 there? It's German supplemental cards 9. So what I would do is I'm going to shuffle this deck of I think it has 18 cards. Yep, 18 cards. And so half of that deck, 9 of them, are going to end up here in the draw pile. But that's not the end. I mean, just think of this as an infomercial. That's not all. So all we did was just select which cards of these are going to end up in the draw pile. Then it says, place the previous day's discards back in the So all it's saying is after you select those 9 and put them here, if there was any in this discard, they would now go back to this deck, and they'll be available for the next time, right? That's all that's saying. And so then the previous day's primary discards go straight to the draw pile. So then that's saying the same thing I was trying to explain to you. These ones go back to here after you've already selected these to go here. But these guys, the primary discards, always, that word primary means these are always in your hand. You always have them, or at least you always have them in your draw pile. You don't always have them in your hand. That was a wrong word. Then you shuffle this draw pile, and that includes the primaries from there, all the primaries that were already here, and then the 9 we drew from there, right? So then you shuffle all those, and then you draw your hand for the day, which every day, except for the first day, your hand size is 6. So you're going to get 6 cards. And and then you're going to play cards. And so I know I've been avoiding using specifics, but so then I'm going to take my card, and it has this little 2 on the left there. See that little 2? If I play this card, it's going to use up 2 points of, so you're going to do this thing called an impulse, and we can play as many of these cards as we want. One at a time, we play commands. And so this would be a command card that we're playing. That's why it's called German command. So we're going to play it for the command. Now there's also a supplemental thing at the bottom here. Like you can see during combat, I can play this card as a fixed artillery. That's different. So that's hence the reason why this is a different shaded section. But normally when it's your impulse, like it's our turn, we can use this as a command. And then we have to resolve that command completely. And let's say that my hand of 6 cards, you know, I use just this card, right? And so I spent 2 of my points, and on the first turn you need to spend 10 before your impulse ends. So that means I got 8 more points left. Well, I get to draw another card from the draw pile because I always get to have 6 in my hand. And then I play my next card. And then I keep playing and playing and playing until I get to 10. Now, let's say that I play this top card here, and then I get into a combat. I can play another card, and just like this, to add fixed artillery to my combat. Well, if I'm adding a card to my combat, I'm still adding these 2 points. Like those 2 points get added regardless. And some of those details I still am a little fuzzy on, but at a high level, I can explain that much to you. And so this 7th Panzer Army, this is a core card. So let's say I played this card. Then what it's saying is that what is this? This is the 80th Corps. I can activate them. And so it's telling me I can deploy all the corps from the reserves. Now, I don't have to I can pick any of these because this is my turn. So obviously when it's the AI's turn, we're going to start at the top and go line by line until one of the lines works, right? But for us, this is just helpful because it's reminding us what we can do. So if I had anything in the reserves for this 80th Corps, I can deploy them. If I want to, I can activate all the units. So let's go look. Do I even have this Corps out here? They're going to be blue bar on the top, just like that. And so they're pretty easy to look for, right? Because we only have one thing with the blue bar on the top, and they're not there. Actually, I just gave you a big mistake. See, I'm still learning. And right here, it's not the blue. See, this blue bar on the top is the blue on the bottom. Because right there, there's the 80th Corps. So I can deploy anything that's in the reserve. I have nothing in the reserve, by the way. Or I can activate all the units. And so that means I'd be able to activate all 4 of these units. And what does it mean to activate them? Stuff like that. Well, that's part of the devil in the detail rules, right? There's a million things you get to do. You get to move, you get to attack. Those are your 2 primary functions. But there's so many things. Like you have to check for, they have like hidden units, the Allies do. Or maybe I like to view it as undetected units, right? And so now you're detecting them. You got to see if the Allies are blowing up bridges. There's a lot of things you have to do in the middle of your activation. Or you can assign 1 RP to corps, and you can see here that that doesn't happen until December 20th, and it lasts until the 29th. I can't remember what the RP is. I think it's saying, yeah, I don't want to guess on this. I need to look that up, like what the RP is. I wasn't paying attention. And then the activate any one unit is saying that I can activate somebody that's not in the 80th Corps. I can activate somebody else from some other corps. Now, this is specific to just this corps. There's other cards that are division cards or just army cards, right? And so it's saying the entire army. Well, the entire army is all these blue. So you can see this is blue and that's blue. They're part of the same army, but they're different corps units, as you can see. They're even different divisions, because this is 276, that's 352. If you play an army card or a division card, you might think, well, hold on, do you get to activate the entire army? No, you still only get to pick one corps out of it, but you get more, it's more flexible of a card because you can pick any of the corps, right? You don't have to, you're not restricted to just this one. You can pick that one instead. It's helpful. And then I can also tell you there's a rule that's in place where if I activate these guys, and let's say they attack and do some attacky-tacky stuff, then I'm not allowed to activate them during the next impulse. Now remember, there could be many impulses in the course of one day, and that's the next thing I want to talk about. So I gave you an example card. This is just some baloney card, right? We're going to have a hand of 6 of these cards. And so I get to pick any one of them I want to play. And then, as you remember, we're going to get 9 cards from here, and they're going to be added in. So we started off with 7 here plus 9. I'm going to have 16 cards in this draw pile. Well, after I do my first impulse, I draw back up to my hand size, right? I'm back up to 6 again. And I keep going, where I go, then the allies go, and then I go, and then the allies go. And it's my understanding right now that that keeps happening until I run out of cards. So this deck is going to get used up completely. And so the primary cards, of course, are going to go into this discard pile, and they're going to be back for me next turn. Or next day, right? Not, turn day, I'm going to interchange of those. But the supplemental cards I used are going to go here, and they're not going to be available until the 3rd day. So it's a pretty neat mechanic, and I think I got that part of it down, and I hope I explained that well. It's, again, the devil's in the details of all these things we have to check in the course of implementing these actions that are on these cards. Because this one card is just like a small doorway into a whole new universe of actions and rules. And so in just that one card, I mean, with it having 1, 2, 3, 4 bullets on it, right? Each of these bullets has a mountain of things. Here's another core card that's going to be similar. Oh, let me see if I can find one that's not a core card. You know what? The all the primary cards are core cards, so they all have similarities to them. So let me go to the supplemental. Here we go. This is a division card, right? This is different than the core card. You'll notice there's no background color, and it's specifically saying that we're going to activate the 2nd Panzer Division or the Panzer Lehr Division, right? And so there you can see we have 3 actions that are available with this card. We can deploy a reserve unit, of course. This A you ignore because that's only during the solo allied player game. And then these 2 other Gs where we could activate the 2nd Panzer or Lehr Division or activate any one unit. So it's very similar, this one. So probably not that exciting. So let me see if I can find... Here we go, there's an Army Group one. So Model is getting involved. You can deploy reserves, you can activate the Camp Group. Now, that's an interesting one where you can pick any hex on the map, and then it's like an HQ unit. And so everywhere that's within 2 spaces of it activates. So if you have a lot of troops that are around that, you can activate all of them. And then you can see there's a lot of, now of course A we ignore, and then here's G, any command event, which command events are on some of these cards. I don't know if I found one. Let me see if I can find one. What would a command event look like? I think it's that special Montefiore directs traffic. You can see there, but that one you have to be on December 19th before you can use that one. So, so that's the idea. And at a high level, I can confidently tell you I can handle this with minimal rule issues. I'm sure somebody will correct something, but it's the details after that has me hung up. And the thing that makes me laugh so much is the deployment method A and B. One deployment method wasn't enough. There had to be two. So yeah, there's, rules about zone of control. I actually think the rules about zone of control in this game is easier than D-Day. D-Day seemed to have a lot more if-then-else statements. But yeah, you got there the undetected allied defenders, so they can pop up at any minute. And, you draw combat chits and there's this, flank attacks, air power, artillery. There's a rule for everything, and that's what I'm getting at. Is it's intense. I'm not saying that the rules are bad, or even that they're that you can't understand them. It's none of those things, none of the above. It's just that there's a lot of them. I think that's the only thing to share there. And like I said, I have to play, and I have to stumble my way through until I get comfortable with them. So, what I just did for you by showing you what I know about the cards, I would continue to do with the rest of this, stumbling and bumbling. I would explain what I know, I would explain what I don't know, and you might have a lot of spaces in my video where I'm either stopping so I can read, right? Or you're watching me read, which I know is not fun, but that's really where I'm at. Now, this little sequence of play I think is really good, and what's awesome here, folks, is that while I'm playing, obviously I start here, and it shows me for example, where to go in the rule book to figure out supply status. I can go to 14.2, and here I go to 14.34 to adjust it. So the references are there, and so what I'm planning on doing is just starting and going, and then when it references these sections, I have to stop and then go read those sections and make sure I know what I'm doing. And then once I feel confident that I know what I'm doing, I would continue. And then, you do the command phase with the impulses, et cetera, et cetera. And you can see here that we don't even have to do this on day one, right? That doesn't happen until December 17th. I'm smart enough to know that, to tell you that. So when we come down here to command phase, we would start here on the first day. So, but still, it shows you, 6.3, 6.2. We can go and step our way through it. Now, when the allies go, they're going to do something similar. What they would do is they're going to draw this. They draw this allied command card. So let's say this is the card they drew. It's a division card. You're going to go through each of these lines. You're skipping all the A's. Remember, the A is for the solo allied game. So we're only going to look at this line with the arrow, or the G, or the arrow, the event. And I think there's a rule about events not happening on day one, too. I can't remember. But there's something about events that we'd have to look up. So they're either going to deploy reserves, the 4th and 10A reserves, which there are no reserves. Right now, that's all there is in the reserves. Or it's going to bing, 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 and then they're going to activate these two divisions. So the 4th Armored and 10th Armored would both activate, which is actually pretty brutal. So then, what does it mean to activate them? Like, what do they do, right? So you got to find the 4th and 10A divisions on the map. And so, for example, this is the 4th right here. And you can see that with the number 4 on it. There's only one unit in the 4th on the map. There's nobody else. And then here's the 9A, but I don't see any 10A. And this isn't Canada A. And you can tell by the color again. See this band here? How it's like this, I don't know, it's almost like a yellowish green. Well, that's the same color as these. So this is where you look. You don't have to look up there to those dark green troops because they're not in this division. So it's the 4th and the 10th Armored Division, which is interesting because there's only an infantry from the 4th here, and I don't see a 10th Armored Division anywhere. So that's an interesting card. But now, granted, we're not playing, folks. I'm just doing hypothetical stuff. There are cards up here that, or there's units here that on turn December 16th, they actually go into the reserve. And these are both from the 9A division. And, oh, here's some from the 4th. So like this one is sitting, waiting to come into the game. You can see right there, the little number 16. On December 16th, they are available in the reserve. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to take those at the beginning of turn 16, which is the start of the game, right? And they're going to go into the reserve box. And so remember it said that the top line here says deploy the reserves. So if this was the first allied card of the game, they're going to do the deploy action. And then we're going to have to do that deployment method A and B thing I was just laughing about, right? So that's how we would resolve that. So if it was activating, then it's like, okay, well, what do they do? I mean, if I activate them, what's the rules behind that? Well, then they have these allied action cards. And my understanding right now is you draw 3 of them and you reveal them. And so let's say these are the 3 we drew. Well, then you have these little numbers on them, 13, 16, 17. So you would put them in the number order like this, okay? And then we would start on number 1 up through 19. So we would start at the lowest number, 1, and keep going up to 19. And then we would do this action right here. And we would do that for every unit in these 2 divisions. Well, right now, there's only 1 unit on the board. So let's assume there were no reserves. It's this 4th unit here. We would go through this card and see if the 4th could do this action. If it can't, then we go to the next card. And then we do that one. And then we go to this last card and do that one. So this last card may never happen, especially when there's only 1 unit in the entire division on the map. Now let's say there were 10 units on the division. Let's say that this first card, 5 of the units in the division did this first card. Well, then when you get to the second card, only those other 5 that have not yet done anything would be able to do something. And let's say you get 4 of them there, and then you have 1 final unit. Well, then maybe that 1 final unit would do that one. And it's really interesting because you can see here that it says 1 to 19. And so that number that you're seeing there is, see this little number 6? So what it's saying is that this number 6 is within the 1 to 19 range. So this action is going to possibly impact this unit. It is possible to have a unit that is up in the 30s, right? So this first action would not apply to anything that's over 19. So if you had units in your division that were over number 19 on their number, they would actually ignore this action. It doesn't apply to them. And then you would do either this one or that one. And it looks like they're both the same, the move actions here. So, so anyways, maybe I got a few things wrong there. I'm feeling generally in the right ballpark, that I just described everything so far with a pretty decent accuracy of how the game is expected to play out. Now, and I know I've said it 30 times already, but devil's in the details. And so as we would be doing these actions, I would have to flip through this rule book to make sure that I got all the details right. Did you check this? Did you check this? Did you check that? And by the way, what I was just describing is the allied impulse. Like when it's their turn, this is what they would do. And so you can see there that, first you conduct the first applicable command. There could be a special event, deploy reserves, and then see 9.1. We would go there in the rule book, make sure we're following 9.1. Here we would go to 9.5. And then, of course, some of these we can ignore until later dates. And this no command thing is a weird one. We have to complete its command and then draw another card, which basically it means that they, I think they go twice, is what it basically boils down to. The no command means that the Germans lose an impulse, so you're doing 2 allied impulses. That's the general gist of it. I don't know if that's thematically what's happening, but basically that's how I've interpreted it. And yeah, so that's what I'm offering to you. I need to play. I need to make a lot of mistakes, and I need to do it in a format where I'm not going to have people telling me that I should kill myself in 1,000 ways, which some YouTubers have actually said to me. And so I'm offering that. So let's say you're a person who doesn't want to deal with that nonsense. Go to playthrough number 2. I just spent some decent money on this game. I think somebody even commented that this is a very expensive game, and I agree with them. This is one of the most expensive games I think I've purchased. I want to like it, obviously, because of the amount of money I invested. So far, reading the rules, I do like it. I'm intimidated by it because it's got so much going on. But I intend to do multiple playthroughs of this. How many of them am I going to record versus how many am I just enjoy on my own? My honest answer is that I've gotten to a point where I've enjoyed recording while I play. Talking to you guys and then finding out a day later what your comments are has actually made solitaire play a lot more fun. I don't actually prefer solitaire play. I prefer playing with other players. But I really enjoy games that are deep like this, and I don't really know a lot of people who play these kind of games. I have a lot of Euro friends, and we play Euro games, but those games can be, up and down within 1 or 2 and maybe at most 3 hours. Not too many people will come over and play this, even in a 2-player format. Even the coin games, I can sometimes get a group to play that one, but they tend to not like coin games because they feel that coin games can be very swingy, and they have their reasons, and I don't, want to get into all that. But anyways, I'm rambling. I've spent probably 20 minutes more than I should have. But yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about with this, and there's a lot I can explain, and we can get cracking with this. And with or without you, I'm going to get cracking. My only regret is the weekend's over, and it took me the entire weekend to just get this far, and now I have to go back to work. So work is that annoying thing that gets in the way, but it's the reason I was able to afford this game, so I'm not going to complain that much. So thank you for watching, and so my plan is if I'm going to do my own playthrough without recording, what I'm probably going to do is just record it anyways, and then decide whether or not to upload them, and even if I do upload them, I might delete them once I'm ready to do my quote real playthrough, right? So we have video 1 there, and then I would just delete this video plus the next set of videos, and then we'd start playthrough number 2, and it would look like playthrough number 1 as far as the series is concerned. I might even also do that. It all depends on how much I screw up. I mean, I played Space Corp completely wrong my first playthrough. I had to delete all those videos because I didn't want to mislead people. So anyways, enough rambling. I'm going to say good night and happy work week to everybody. I hope many of you are in warmer places than Minnesota is. We hit -20, and there's some parts of this state that's at -50. I know I have some Canada friends who are laughing at me because they're probably have been there weeks and weeks ago. But it's not fun. I don't enjoy it. But it is a great time to be board gaming because, when people ask me, what'd you do all weekend? And I said, I played board games. They'll be like, oh yeah, it was cold. There's nothing else to do. It's like the only time in your life that you're considered socially acceptable for playing board games. So I do welcome the cold weather for that reason. So anyways, enough rambling. Stay awesome. And thank you for joining me at the table for even just this little bit.